Welcome everyone to Whimsy Woven Stories. Here, we explore gripping tales of real-life twists. Join our storytelling community.
I sat in the courtroom, the air thick with tension. My hands rested on the wooden table in front of me, feeling every scratch and groove under my fingertips. Across from me sat Camila, my soon-to-be ex-wife, looking like she'd already won. Her sleek gray suit and perfectly styled hair screamed confidence. Sitting next to her was her lawyer, Griffin Leary, leaned back in his chair with a smug grin like he was enjoying front-row seats to my downfall. The divorce hearing had dragged on for hours, and now we were at the final stretch, the part where they split up your life like it's some damn yard sale. Griffin's voice cut through the silence, sharp and condescending. "Enjoy your new life. You'll be leaving with nothing." His eyes gleamed with satisfaction. Camila didn't even look at me when she spoke. Her voice was cold and quick. "You should have been a better husband." My heart slammed against my chest, a hot wave of anger rushing through me, mixed with something heavier. Regret maybe, or just hurt. But I didn't show it. My jaw clenched, my face still. I kept my eyes locked on the judge's weathered hands as he flipped through papers. The judge, a tired-looking man with gray hair and a gravelly voice, looked over his glasses at me. "Mr. Rodas, do you have any final words before I make my ruling?" The room went dead silent. I could feel Camila and Griffin watching me, waiting for me to break, waiting for me to beg. But I didn't. Instead, a strange calm washed over me, the kind you get right before a storm hits. I reached into my briefcase, fingers brushing against the thick folder I'd spent months building. "Actually, yes," I said, my voice steady as I slid it across the table toward the judge. "I'd like to submit this as evidence." The judge raised an eyebrow, curious, and took it. Camila's head jerked up. Her eyes narrowed. But I didn't look at her, not yet. I wanted to see her face after. The judge opened the folder and began flipping through it. Receipt after receipt, email after email, bank statement after bank statement. I dug it all up like buried treasure. My hands stayed clasped on the table, but inside, my mind was racing. This wasn't just about the divorce anymore. This was about everything she thought she'd gotten away with. The silence stretched. I risked a glance at Camila. Her smirk was gone. Her face had gone pale, like someone had just pulled the rug out from under her. Griffin shifted uncomfortably, tapping his fingers on the table, his confidence cracking. "What is this?" he muttered. I didn't answer. I didn't have to. The judge looked up at me, then back down at the pages, and I could see the gears turning. I leaned back in my chair and let the moment settle in. 4 months, I've been the quiet one. The guy who didn't fight back. The husband who let her walk all over him. But not today. Today, I had the upper hand. And damn, it felt good. Camila's voice finally broke the silence. Sharp, shaky. "What did you do?" she hissed, leaning toward me, her eyes wide with something I hadn't seen in her before, fear. I didn't answer right away. I just gave her a tight, measured smile and turned back to the judge. He cleared his throat, set the folder down, and looked at their side of the room. "Counselor." "Ms. Rodas," he said, his tone heavy. "We're going to need to discuss this further." My heart was still pounding, but now it wasn't from anger, it was satisfaction. I played my card. And now the game had changed. The courtroom buzzed as the judge called for a recess. I watched Camila and Griffin huddle together, whispering fast and sharp. She threw a look at me, half fury, half panic, and I met her gaze head on. 12 years of marriage, and it had come to this. Me with a folder full of her secrets. Her with nothing but a lawyer who was starting to sweat. I didn't know how the judge would rule, not yet. But one thing was certain, Camila wasn't smirking anymore. And that was enough. For now. The bailiff motioned for us to leave. I stood up, my steps steady, my head high. The folder still sat on the judge's bench like a ticking bomb. This wasn't the end. Not even close. But it was a damn good start. That morning, I woke up thinking it'd be a normal day. Coffee brewing in the kitchen, maybe a quiet hour before the world kicked in. The room was still dark, curtains drawn tight. The red digits on the clock blinked 6:45. I rubbed my eyes, the weight of another sleepless night pressing down, and swung my legs out of bed. Camila was already up. No surprise, she'd always been the early riser. Full of energy I could never quite match. I shuffled into the kitchen, my bare feet cold against the tile. She was standing by the counter, but she wasn't making coffee. She was holding a manila envelope, tapping her fingers against it, her eyes glued to her phone. "Morning," I mumbled, reaching for the pot. She didn't even glance at me. Just slid the envelope across the counter, her voice weirdly casual. I spoke to my lawyer. "This should be simple." I froze, my hand hovering in midair. The words hit slow and heavy. We'd been married 12 years. Built a life together. And this was how it ended. I picked up the envelope, fumbling with the clasp, and pulled out the papers. Divorce papers. Her signature already there, neat, sharp, like it was just another business deal. My eyes scanned the pages. Legal jargon blurred, but one thing stood out crystal clear. I was getting nothing. No house, no money, No piece of the business I helped her build. Zero. I looked up at her, waiting for an explanation, an apology, anything. But she just kept scrolling on her phone, like I wasn't even there. "Camila," I said, my voice rough. "What the hell is this?" She finally looked at me. Eyes cold, distant. "It's over," she said. "You knew this was coming, did I?" I stood there, the papers shaking in my hand, trying to make sense of it all. She didn't flinch. Just went back to her phone. It was like I didn't even exist. I'd spent years backing her up, pouring everything I had into Rhodes Interiors, her design company. I wasn't the one in the spotlight, no big client meetings or fancy parties, but I was the one holding it all together. I did the grunt work, the admin, the accounting, the endless emails, the scheduling. I stayed up late balancing her books when she was too wiped out to do it herself. I planned her events when she was too slammed. And I did it all without a paycheck, without even a simple thank you. Now she was tossing me aside like I was some assistant she didn't need anymore. "This is what I get?" I said quietly, my voice tight. She let out a sigh, finally put her phone down, and looked at me like I was a clueless kid. "You didn't keep up," she said. I grew. "You didn't." It hit like a gut punch. And something inside me just snapped. Not loud, not explosive. Just this quiet, deep snap, like a cord that had been stretched too far for too long. I walked out of the kitchen, still clutching the divorce papers, and dropped onto the couch in the living room. The house was dead silent, too silent. I could hear her moving around behind me, getting ready like it was any other day, like she hadn't just blown up our whole life. I flipped through the papers again, reading every cold, calculated line. She wanted the house. Our house. The one I'd fixed up with my own hands, new paint, new floors, repaired every damn leak. She wanted the business too. All of it. Even though I'd been there since the beginning, back when it was just some wild idea scribbled on a napkin. No alimony. No equity. No payout. Just a clean break for her. And a big fat zero for me. My chest tightened and I clenched my jaw, trying to hold it all in. I wanted to scream, to throw the papers at her, to demand how she could do this to me after everything. But I didn't. I just sat there, breathing hard, letting it all settle in. When she finally walked out the door, heels clicking across the floor, purse slung over her shoulder, like it was any other Tuesday, I didn't say a word. I was still sitting on the couch when the door slammed shut. The silence that followed swallowed me whole. I looked around the room, our framed photos, the furniture we picked out together, the life we built, and it hit me she planned this. She'd been ahead of me for months, maybe longer, setting up her clean exit while I was still playing the part of the loyal husband. I dropped the divorce papers on the coffee table and leaned back, staring at the ceiling. I could have begged her to stay. I could have fought for us right then and there. But what was the point? She'd already made her decision, and I wasn't part of it anymore. But the longer I sat there, the more something shifted inside me. It wasn't just pain or anger anymore. It was something sharper. I wasn't going to let her walk away with everything. Not like this. I didn't know how yet, but I was going to fight back. That morning, when she handed me those papers, she thought it was the end. She had no idea she just started something. I wasn't always the quiet guy in the background, letting life happen around me. I used to be more than that. And that morning, after Camila blindsided me with divorce papers, all I could think about was how it started. I stayed in the same spot, sitting there in the living room, remembering the early days when we were still a team. The house was quiet in that heavy, suffocating way. I could almost hear the echoes of how things used to be. Back then, I was her biggest supporter. I believed in her and in Rhodes Interiors, back when it was just the two of us in a cramped apartment. She was sketching designs on scrap paper, and I was teaching myself how to build her first website from scratch. I wasn't a tech guy. I just figured it out, nights of trial and error, instant noodles and burnt coffee. Also, she could have something to show the world. I still remember her smile when she said, "We're going to make it big. You and me." And I believed her. Those first few years, I was everywhere she needed me. I cold called potential clients, my voice shaking. I set up her meetings, I stood by her side at networking events, sweaty palms and crooked tie, while she worked the room like a pro. People noticed her. They loved her energy, her style. The clients started rolling in. And I was proud. I stayed in the shadows, but I didn't mind. I liked building something with her. I liked watching her shine. When she threw her first big business mixer, I was the one behind the bar pouring drinks, making sure everyone was having a good time. Nobody remembered my name, but I didn't care. Camila was shining, and that was enough for me. Half of that business was mine, whether my name was on the logo or not. I was there for every step, the brainstorming, the budgeting, the long nights, the meltdowns. I kept the numbers straight when she forgot, tracked down clients who hadn't paid, kept things moving behind the scenes. I never asked for credit, never demanded a title. I did it because I loved her, because I believed in her dream. But now, she'd taken it all and claimed it like I'd never existed. And sitting there with the papers in front of me, I saw it all clearly for the first time. I gave everything, and she never looked back. The house felt colder, emptier than ever. Every little thing around me was something I'd fixed, painted, planted. Every detail had my hands on it. And the business? She wouldn't have it without me. I knew the inner workings better than she thought I did. That was my edge, and I was going to use it. I grabbed my phone and scrolled through my contacts. My thumb hovered over a name I hadn't touched in years, Zaire. We went way back, college buddies. He was a paralegal now at some small firm downtown. I had called. My heart picked up when he answered. "Hey man," he said, surprised. "Been a minute." "No time for small talk," I said. "Camila's trying to take everything. Divorce stuff. I got a few ideas, but I need someone who knows the legal side." He didn't hesitate. "Say no more. Meet me tomorrow. Coffee shop on 5th. We'll figure it out." I thanked him, already feeling a bit lighter. Then I dialed another number. He was a freelance tech guy I met at one of Camila's events. Quiet like me, but sharp. The kind of guy who could dig into anything digital. "Noah," I said when he picked up. "I need you to track down some stuff, old files, accounts, passwords." "Can you do it?" He gave a short laugh. "If it's online, I can find it. Send me what you've got." That afternoon, I started digging. I headed to the home office, her office technically, where I'd spent countless hours working for free. I opened old drawers, dusted off forgotten laptops, rummaged through stacks of papers and USB drives she didn't even remember existed. She'd always been sloppy with the details. I was the one who cleaned up her messes. And now, that was going to be her mistake. I found backups of client lists, early financial docs I'd put together, sticky notes with logins she'd scribbled and left lying around. My hands were shaking a little as I plugged in an old drive. The screen lit up. Folders. Years of data. She had no idea I still had access. I didn't know exactly what I was looking for yet, but I knew there was something. She'd gotten careless. Too confident. And I'd been too loyal to notice. Not anymore. By the time the sun dipped below the horizon, the living room was cast in long shadows, and I had a plan forming. Zaire would help me figure out what I could legally use. Noah would dig deeper, crack into whatever she'd locked me out of. And me? I'd piece it all together, every forgotten contribution, every late night, every quiet sacrifice. I wasn't going to let her erase me. Not without a fight. The house creaked around me as I leaned back in the chair, staring up at the ceiling. Camila thought she'd left me with nothing, but she had no idea what I was capable of. Not yet. I wasn't the quiet husband anymore. I was the guy who helped build half her world, and I was about to remind her of that, one file at a time. Ever since that morning she dropped the divorce papers on me, the days and nights started to blur. Each one dragged on long and restless as I sat in the house alone, digging through her past. The living room had turned into my war room, papers spread all over the coffee table, my laptop glowing in the dark, and a half-empty mug of cold coffee sitting forgotten by my side. I'd always been the organized one, the guy who kept track of the stuff Camila didn't care about. And now that was my edge. That was my weapon. I started small, pulling files off the old USB drives I'd dug out, flipping through random stacks of receipts she'd crammed into drawers years ago. At first, it was chaos. Scribbled notes, mismatched invoices, numbers that didn't add up. But the longer I stared, the clearer the pattern became. She hadn't even tried to cover her tracks. My eyes burned from the screen's glare, but I couldn't stop. Every click, every document was a piece of the puzzle. And slowly, the bigger picture started coming together. Camila had gotten sloppy over the years, too sure of herself, too convinced I'd never notice what she was doing behind the scenes. I found unfiled receipts, hundreds of them, stuffed into old folders she hadn't opened in ages. At first it was small things, payments to vendors that didn't exist, expenses duplicated across different dates. Then it got serious. Fake invoices for projects that never happened. Money funneled to shell companies with names I didn't recognize. I leaned back on the couch, rubbing my face, trying to process it. She'd been moving money around, hiding it, and I'd been too focused on keeping her books balanced to notice. My fingers hovered over the keyboard before I typed in one of the company names. Nothing. No website. No business address. Just a dead end. That's when I knew. I was onto something real. I kept going night after night. The house stayed silent, except for the hum of my laptop and the occasional creak in the floorboards. Noah had come through, just like he promised. He cracked into some of Camila's old accounts, stuff she hadn't updated in years. And that's when the floodgates opened. Bank statements, emails, logs from business accounts I hadn't touched since I stepped away from the admin work. That's when I found it, offshore transfers. Small at first, then bigger. Thousands of dollars quietly siphoned from Rhodes Interiors into accounts I couldn't trace. My heart pounded, but my hands stayed steady as I copied everything to a new hard drive. This wasn't just her screwing me in a divorce. This was fraud. Maybe worse. I thought about the early investors, the ones who believed in her back when it was just a dream. I'd met those people, looked them in the eye, told them she was the real deal. Had she burned them too? Then I found something that made my stomach drop, payments to Elia Reyes. I knew that name. He was the consultant she'd started bringing up a couple years ago, always with a smirk I didn't like. I'd seen him once at a gala, tall, slick, way too comfortable, putting his hand on her arm while I stood across the room pouring drinks. The payments started small, consulting fees, just a few $100. Then they grew. $5,000. 10. All run through Road's interiors like it was business as usual. I stared at the screen, jaw clenched. Not just her boyfriend, her pay boyfriend. Paid with money I helped her earn. I wanted to throw something. Scream. Call her and demand answers. But I didn't. I took a breath, saved the file, and kept going. Anger wasn't enough anymore. I needed a plan. The folder I built grew every night, at first digital, then printed pages stacked and locked in a drawer. I cross-checked dates, matched payments to fake projects, dug into every dusty corner of the business. Fake charity donations. Made-up write-offs. She'd stolen hundreds of thousands, pocketed it while I was crunching numbers and thinking we were building a future together. My hands were shaking as I printed the final batch. The printer buzzed through the silence, and I stared at the stack. This wasn't about getting my fair share anymore. This was about truth. About consequences. And I had the proof, right there in black and white. The next day, I met Zaire at a coffee shop and slid a few pages across the table. He whistled low, flipping through them, his eyes sharp. "This is serious," he said, looking up. "You sure you want to go this far?" I looked him dead in the eye. "I'm already in it." I nodded, my voice firm. "She doesn't get to walk away clean." ZY didn't argue. He just told me to keep it quiet, keep it safe, and said he'd help me figure out what was legally usable. Later that night, Noah called. His voice was tight. "I pulled some more account logs from 3 years ago," he said. "You're not going to like what's in them." He emailed the files, and I spent another long night connecting the dots, my coffee cold again. Every piece made the picture clearer. Camila hadn't just betrayed me. She built her success on a stack of lies. And I was getting ready to bring it all down. The courtroom felt different that day. Heavier somehow, like even the air knew something was about to break. I sat at the table, my hands resting on the polished wood, that folder in front of me like a loaded weapon I was finally ready to fire. Across the room, Camila sat straight-backed, eyes flicking between me and the judge. Her lawyer, Griffin Leary, sat next to her, looking less smug than usual. This divorce hearing had dragged out for weeks, but this was the moment I'd been working toward since the day she handed me those papers. My attorney, Delilah Chin, gave me a small, steadying nod. I'd handed her the folder days ago, and she'd said, "This changes everything. Just wait for the right moment." This was it. The judge shuffled some papers, pushed his glasses up his nose, and looked around the courtroom. "We're here to finalize the division of assets," he said in that dry, matter-of-fact tone. "Any last submissions before I make my ruling?" Griffin stood, straightening his tie like he was about to deliver one of his polished speeches about how Camila deserved everything. The house, the business, all of it. But before he could say a word, I raised my hand. "Your Honor," I said, keeping my voice steady even though my heart was pounding. "I have something to submit." The judge gave a slight nod, and I slid the folder across the table. The bailiff picked it up and brought it to the bench. Camila whipped her head toward me, eyes narrowing, but I kept my focus on the judge. I wasn't going to let her intimidate me. Not anymore. He opened the folder. His fingers turned the pages slowly at first, then stopped. The room went still, quiet enough to hear every breath. His expression changed. His brow furrowed. His mouth tightened. I knew exactly what he was seeing. Evidence of tax fraud, phony charitable donations, fake invoices, and payments to shell companies. Pages and pages of bank statements showing money funneled offshore. Payments to Elliot Reyes labeled as consulting, when we both knew what they really were. I didn't move. I didn't flinch. I let the folder speak for itself. Griffin jumped to his feet, his voice loud and defensive. "Your Honor, this has no relevance to the divorce. It's a cheap stunt, a desperate move." The judge cut him off with a sharp raise of his hand. "Sit down, counselor. I'll decide what's relevant." Griffin slumped back into his seat, red-faced. I caught the faintest tremble in Camila's hands. She wasn't smirking anymore. She wasn't even looking at me, just straight ahead, jaw tight, face pale. I leaned back and let the silence settle over her. For months, I've been the one taking the hits, the man she thought she could throw away like I didn't matter. But now she was the one cornered. The judge cleared his throat and flipped back to the first page. "These transfers to an account in the Cayman Islands, dated 3 years ago," he said, looking right at Camila's team. "Can you explain them?" Griffin fumbled for words, some excuse about business expenses, but the judge wasn't buying it. "And these payments to Mr. Reyes, what consulting services did he provide?" Camila's voice cut in, sharp and shaking. "That's private. It doesn't belong here." But the judge wasn't letting up. His tone hardened with every question. I stayed silent, just watching it all unfold. Delilah leaned toward me and whispered, "You did it." They're rattled. I gave a small nod, eyes still locked on the judge. This wasn't about revenge. It was about truth. And it was finally happening. By the time the judge called a recess, the room was tense. Camila's side was scrambling. Griffin gathered his papers with shaky hands, while Camila turned toward me, her eyes full of fury, and maybe something else too. Fear. I met her gaze and didn't look away until she did. Outside in the hallway, Delilah clapped me on the shoulder. "That folder is a game changer," she said. They never saw it coming. I nodded, the weight of it all finally starting to hit me. All the late nights, all the years of being invisible, it was finally worth something. Camila thought she'd already won before the fight had even begun. She was wrong. That night, back home, I paced the living room. The TV was on, some late-night news, but I wasn't watching. The quiet felt thick, too heavy to sit with. My phone buzzed hard on the coffee table, making me jump. Unknown number. I stared at the screen, then picked it up. "Hello," I said, my voice rough from not talking all day. There was a pause. Then a low, raspy voice came through, like someone was trying to hide who they were. "Back off." No greeting. No explanation. Just two sharp, cold words. My stomach twisted, but I kept my tone even. "Who is this?" I asked. There was another pause, longer this time, then a click. The line went dead. I stared at the phone, heart thudding, wondering if I'd imagined it. But I hadn't. Someone was scared enough to call me in the middle of the night. The next morning, before I even poured my coffee, Delilah's name lit up my screen. "Camila's team filed motion," she said, voice brisk but steady. "They want to settle. Full offer. The house included. Some cash too." I leaned against the kitchen counter, the mug warm in my hands, letting it sink in. A settlement. After all of it, the folder, the evidence, the judge's questions, they were waving a white flag. But it didn't feel like a win. It felt like hush money. A desperate attempt to shut me down before I could go any further. "They're scared," Delilah added. That folder hit a nerve. I nodded, even though she couldn't see me, my mind already spinning. "What do you think?" She didn't skip a beat. "We've got them cornered. If you want more, we keep pushing." I set the mug down and stared out the window at the empty street. More. I wasn't finished. Not yet. Then things started getting weird. Delilah called again that afternoon, her voice tighter this time. "My office got broken into last night," she said. "Files tossed everywhere. Nothing major taken. Just a mess. Cops called it random." But she didn't finish her sentence, and she didn't have to. I felt a cold shiver run up my spine. Random didn't fit, not after that call, not after the settlement offer. Later that day, I tried to log into my bank account. Frozen. No warning, no details, just a blinking contact us message on the screen. I spent an hour on hold, jaw clenched, until someone at the bank unfroze it, muttering about a security flag. Coincidence? Maybe. But then Zaire texted me. His message was short, tight. "Guy in a black car followed me home. Be careful." My hands went cold. Camila wasn't just rattled, she was panicking, and someone was acting on it. That night, I sat on the couch in the dark, lit only by my laptop screen, trying to piece it all together. The folder had cracked something open, something bigger than I expected. And now the pushback was real. Threatening phone calls, break-ins, frozen accounts. I wasn't scared, not exactly, but I was on edge. Every creak in the house made me glance at the windows. Then my email pinged. New message. Unknown sender, just a jumble of numbers and letters. Subject line, check the attachments before it's too late. My pulse jumped. I clicked it, half expecting malware. But it wasn't a scam. It was photos. Grainy but clear. Camila and Griffin, sitting at a cafe. Heads leaned close. And across from them, a woman I didn't recognize. Sharp suit, dark hair, taking notes. The timestamp, 2 days ago. I zoomed in, narrowing my eyes. Something about her was off, too stiff, too focused. I forwarded the email to Noah with a quick message. "Recognize her? Who's the woman?" I texted Noah. He got back to me in under 20 minutes. "Working on it. Give me a day." I leaned back in my chair, staring at the photo still open on my screen. Whoever sent that email wanted me to see it. They wanted me to know Camila was scrambling. But why? Was it a warning? A threat? Or something else entirely? I couldn't sleep that night. Left the lights on. Kept checking the locks. My mind kept looping, spinning through everything I'd stirred up. The settlement offer was still sitting in my inbox. Delilah had forwarded it, but I didn't touch it. This wasn't about money anymore. It was about the truth. And I was way too close to back off now. The next day, Noah called. His voice was low, tight. That woman, Special Agent Thea Morgan, FBI, Financial Crimes Division. I dug into some public records. Rhodes Interiors is on their radar. Money laundering. Maybe more. I froze, phone heavy in my hand. The FBI. Suddenly, the break-in. The weird call. Zaire getting tailed. It all made sense. Camila wasn't just trying to silence me. She was tangled up in something way bigger. And I had accidentally stepped straight into it. "What do I do?" I asked, my voice quieter than I meant. Noah didn't sugarcoat it. Keep your head down, but don't stop. They're watching her, not you. Not yet. I hung up, my hand shaking. I looked at the photo again, Camila's face sharp and tense. She was cornered. And I was the one holding the match. The house felt like a trap that week. Every creak louder. Every shadow deeper. I kept those photos up on my laptop, studying them like they held the key to everything. Camila and Griffin, side by side in some out-of-the-way cafe, across from Special Agent Thea Morgan. My coffee sat untouched on the table beside me. Rhodes Interiors wasn't just a nasty divorce anymore. It was a federal case, and I'd stumbled right into the crosshairs. My phone buzzed every couple hours. Zaire checking in. Noah sending updates. Delilah filling me in. But I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched now, too. The late-night call, Delilah's ransacked office, my frozen bank account. None of it felt random. Camila was getting desperate. And desperate people do dangerous things. Still, I wasn't backing down. I met Delilah at her office a few days later. The mess from the break-in was still everywhere. Papers scattered, a picture frame cracked on the floor. She handed me a sealed file. Her eyes locked on mine, steady but serious. This came from a trusted source, she said, tapping the folder. Open it when you're alone. I nodded, tucking it under my arm, my stomach tightening. Back home, I locked the door, pulled the curtains, and sat at the kitchen table. The file just sat there. I hesitated, then tore it open. Inside was an affidavit, signed by Kay Duran, Griffin's junior associate. I remembered her. Quiet girl, nervous, always trailing behind him at hearings. But now, she was a whistleblower, and her statement hit like a sledgehammer. She laid it all out. Camila faking bids, overcharging clients, manipulating contracts, funneling kickbacks to corporate partners. Worse, Griffin knew. He signed off on the whole thing. My hands trembled as I read it. This wasn't just divorce court drama. It was criminal. I leaned back, the kitchen dim except for the lamp above me. My thoughts spun. The affidavit tied everything together. The shell companies, offshore accounts, payments to Elia Reyes. Camila hadn't just built a business, she built a front. A polished mask hiding something rotten. And I had been too blind, too loyal to see it. Until now. Morgan's presence in those photos wasn't casual. She wasn't sipping coffee with Camila for fun. She was closing in. Delilah confirmed it over the phone that morning. The feds are watching her company. Money laundering through design contracts. Your folder. Probably tipped them off. Maybe I started it. Maybe I just sped it up. But either way, I was in it now. The threats, the break-in, the call. They weren't just panic. They were Camila trying to stop a flood she couldn't control. My phone buzzed again, another unknown number. I picked it up. Silence. Then a text came through. You don't want to be part of this. My jaw clenched. I typed back. Too late. No reply. I didn't expect one. I set the phone down, hands steady now. The affidavit was still open in front of me. Whoever was texting me, whoever tailed Zaire, they thought they could scare me off. They didn't know me. Not the real me. The guy who built something from nothing, only to have it stolen. I called Noah that night. You still digging? I asked. He sighed, static in the background. Yeah, found something. Encrypted emails between Camila and a guy named Jonas Vick took me hours to crack. Real shady, offshore accounts, coded transfers. I'll send it over. My heart pounded. Jonas Vick. Never heard the name, but it felt important. Heavy, like a key I hadn't found yet. Thanks, I said. Keep it safe. Noah gave a short, dry laugh. You too, man. This is getting wild. Wild didn't even begin to cover it. When the files hit my inbox, I scanned them, dates, dollar amounts, cryptic messages about cleaning the books. More fuel. More ammo. I added it to the growing pile. The affidavit. The photos. Noah's findings. It was a mountain now. And Camila was at the bottom, about to be buried. I barely slept that night. The house creaked around me. My brain just wouldn't shut off. The FBI angle changed everything. Morgan wasn't there to talk interior design. She was hunting, and I'd handed her the map. But I wasn't just some bystander anymore. The threats were real. Camila's team was unraveling. Griffin's name in that affidavit meant he was going down too. Disbarment, maybe worse. I paced the living room. Documents spread out like battle plans. Something shifted in me. This wasn't about getting a fair deal. It was a war. And I was all in. All I could do was keep moving forward, one step at a time. After I got that affidavit, the days felt like I was walking straight into a storm. Everything happening fast, with dark clouds closing in. But I stayed on my feet. Most nights, I was camped out in the living room, a single lamp throwing long shadows over the papers and files spread across the coffee table. My laptop hummed as I cross-checked every new document Noah sent over. Kay Duran's words kept replaying in my head. Camila rigging bids, Griffin signing off on shady deals. The whole polished image of Rhodes Interiors was collapsing under the weight of her lies. I always knew she screwed me over, but this was a machine, a cold, calculated operation that chewed through clients, investors, even me, just to keep her wallet fat. Now the FBI was involved. I couldn't stop picturing Special Agent Thea Morgan from those cafe photos. And the pressure. It was closing in on me, too. The threats hadn't let up, they were just getting louder. One night, while I was digging through Jonas Vic's encrypted emails, my phone buzzed. Another text, anonymous, just like before. The screen lit up the dark room. You don't want to be part of this. Same message. Same unknown number. I just stared at it, my thumb hovered over the reply button, but I didn't type a damn thing. Instead, I tossed the phone onto the couch and got back to the emails. Dates, coded phrases, transfers to accounts I couldn't trace. Whoever was behind the messages thought I'd scare easy. But they didn't get it, I was already in too deep. Every new threat just pushed me harder. The next morning, ZY called. His voice was tight. That black car was back last night. Parked across my street for over an hour. I'm fine, he added quickly. But this ain't random. My stomach twisted, but I kept my tone level. Lay low, I told him. We're close. He grunted in agreement, and I hung up, feeling that weight settle heavier on my shoulders. Later that day, I met Delilah at a diner. She scanned the room before sliding into the booth across from me. She looked tired, the break-in still hanging over her, but her voice was steady. Kay's affidavit is gold, she said, keeping it low. The FBI's got it now. My contact confirmed, they're building a case. That folder you gave them pushed it forward. I nodded and sipped my coffee, the bitterness grounding me. What about the settlement? I asked. She smirked, just a little. Still on the table. But it's a panic move. Camila's people know the feds are circling. They're hoping you'll take the money and disappear. I set the mug down, my hand steady. Not happening, I said. This isn't about money anymore. She didn't argue, just gave me a look like she'd known that all along. Back home, I kept working. The house was quiet, except for the shuffle of papers and the occasional ping of new email. Noah's latest batch had more on Jonas Vic, a shady financial fixer tied to a trail of offshore shell companies. The emails linked him to Camila. Nothing explicit, but the hints were damning. Phrases like cleaning up and moving assets. I added it to the growing pile. My mind was racing. The affidavit had already exposed fake bids and kickbacks, but this was another level, the deeper rot. Griffin was in it too. His name popped up in the emails. I could almost picture him sweating now, that smug grin long gone. Delilah said the FBI had the case, but I kept wondering how much they'd already known before I handed them that folder. Then the threats escalated again. I woke up one morning to find my car's windshield shattered. Nothing stolen, just a spiderweb of broken glass, like someone had taken a bat to it. No witnesses. But I knew. I called Delilah, my voice low as I stared at the damage. They're not stopping, I said. She didn't sugarcoat it. They're scared. And scared people get reckless. Keep everything locked down, files, doors, all of it. I nodded, the cold biting at my fingers, and went back inside. That night, another text came in, last chance. I didn't reply, just screenshotted it and sent it to Delilah and Noah. My hands didn't shake anymore. Anger had hardened into something colder. Focused. They could trash my car, follow my friends, send vague threats, but I wasn't the one running out of moves. The next day, I met ZY in a quiet park. No cameras, no ears. The wind rustled the trees as he handed me a USB drive. His face was tense. More account logs, he said. Noah pulled them, stuff from 2 years back. Matches Kay's story. I slid it into my pocket. You good? I asked. He shrugged, but his eyes darted toward the parking lot. I'll live. Just don't like the shadows. I clapped his shoulder and headed home. The logs were a gold mine. Payments to contractors who didn't exist. All signed off by Camila and Griffin. It was airtight. The kind of thing the feds would eat up. But I wasn't done. I wanted every secret exposed. Every loose end tied off. By the end of the week, I was back in the dark, the table covered in files and folders stacked like towers. The FBI was moving. Camila's team was cracking. And I was still standing, the guy they all underestimated. The threats kept coming, but they were just noise now. Desperate, flailing noise. This wasn't just about me anymore. I was in the middle of something bigger. Something that could actually take her down. For good. And I was ready to see it through. No matter what came next. The final hearing came fast. When I walked into that courtroom, I felt like a man who'd been running a marathon. Tired, but too damn stubborn to stop. The tension was thick, like static in the air. I took my seat next to Delilah, my hands resting calmly on the table. Across from us, Camila sat rigid, her face tight, like she hadn't slept in days. Griffin was beside her, his tie crooked. The usual swagger gone, replaced by something twitchy, nervous. The The folder I'd submitted weeks ago had done its damage, cracked their armor, set the FBI on their trail. But I wasn't done. I'd spent every night since digging deeper, stacking more proof, getting ready for this moment. The judge banged the gavel. The sound snapped through the room like a whip. "Closing statement," he said. "Let's wrap this up." Griffin stood first, smoothing his jacket like it could hold him together. He launched into a well-rehearsed speech about how Camila deserved the business, the house, everything. Said she built it from the ground up. His voice started off strong, confident. But I caught the cracks. The way his eyes kept flicking toward me. The stumble over certain words. He was nervous. And he should have been. The settlement offer was still on the table, bigger than before. A clean exit. A fat check in the house. Delilah had forwarded it to me days ago. I stared at it. For half a second, I was tempted. Freedom. No more fights. But I didn't come this far just to cash out. The judge nodded toward me. "Mr. Rhodes." I stood slowly, deliberately, feeling every eye lock onto me. "Your Honor," I said, calm and steady. "I have one final file." The room went dead silent. I reached into my briefcase and pulled out the new folder, thicker than the last, packed with everything Noah and ZY had found since Kay's affidavit. I handed it to the bailiff, who walked it up to the bench. I kept my eyes on Camila. Watched her face tighten as the judge took the folder. Watched her hands grip the table. Watched the panic flash across her eyes. Raw, unfiltered. Griffin shot to his feet. "Objection, Your Honor. This is irrelevant." A delay tactic. The judge didn't even glance at him. "Sit down," he snapped. Griffin dropped back into his chair, red-faced and rattled. The judge opened the folder, adjusting his glasses as he read. I already knew what he was seeing. Emails tying Camila to Jonas Vick, the financial fixer. Proof of shell companies and money being funneled overseas. Transactions that lined up with Kay's affidavit down to the dollar. I'd spent nights connecting the dots, burning my eyes out cross-checking dates and files. And this was it. The last nail. This wasn't just about Rhodes Interiors anymore. It was international fraud, a tangled mess way bigger than I ever imagined. With every page the judge read, his face got darker. He'd pause, flip back to double-check something, then keep going. I stood there, heart pounding, but steady. I let the evidence speak for itself. Camila leaned over to Griffin, whispering frantically. He just shook his head, jaw tight, fists clenched on the table. They were going down, and they knew it. The room was dead quiet except for the sound of paper rustling as the judge kept flipping pages. Halfway through, he stopped and looked up at Camila, a sharp. "Miss Rhodes," he said, voice like a warning. "These documents suggest serious misconduct, stuff that goes way beyond this divorce. Can your counsel explain?" Griffin scrambled to his feet, stumbling over his words. "Your Honor, this hasn't been verified. It's not part of the proceedings." The judge cut him off, voice hard. "It's part of my courtroom now. Sit." Griffin sank back into his chair, pale as a ghost. Camila's hands were trembling in her lap. She turned toward me, eyes wide, whispering harshly across the courtroom. "You don't know what you've done." I held her gaze and gave a small, tight smile. "I think I do," I said. Just loud enough for her to hear. Quiet enough to make it personal. The judge kept reading, his face getting grimmer. I knew it was over, not just the hearing. Her entire game was up. Delilah leaned toward me, whispering, "You've got her." That was the knockout. I gave the slightest nod, eyes still on the judge. He read the last page, set the folder down, and rubbed his temples like it gave him a migraine. "This court will recess," he finally said. "I'm referring these documents to the proper authorities. We're done here." The gavel came down, and the room exploded. Griffin started arguing with the bailiff. Camila stared at the table, drained of all color. I just stood there, letting the noise wash over me, feeling some of the weight finally lift. This wasn't about winning anymore. It was about ending it. About dragging every lie into the light. As we filed out, Delilah clapped me on the back, grinning. "You buried her," she said. I didn't smile, just nodded, my mind already racing. Her words stuck with me. "You don't know what you've done." Was it a threat? Plea? Or the last gasp of someone who knew they'd lost? I didn't know. But I would. For now, I walked out of that courtroom with my head high, the truth echoing behind me. She thought she could erase me. She was dead wrong. The week after the final hearing flew by in a blur. Like life hit fast forward and I was left behind just trying to breathe. Camila's arrest made the news 7 days later. Mugshot. Handcuffs. Rhodes Interiors. Suspected front for fraud and money laundering splashed across headlines. I saw it on my phone, sitting in my kitchen with a cup of coffee. Morning sunlight, quiet room, steam rising. Her assets were frozen. The business collapsed overnight. Clients bailed faster than the feds could seize the files. Griffin got disbarred within days. His name was all over the affidavits and those damning emails. His career, toast. Jonas Vick, the shadowy fixer, just vanished. No trace, no word. Like he never existed. And me? The judge's ruling came in. I got the house. A decent cut of what was left in her accounts. And the best part, knowing the truth had come out. But it didn't feel like a win. Not like I thought it would. That first night after the ruling, I stood in the living room. The place felt too big. Too quiet. 15 years of memories in every corner of a life that didn't feel like mine anymore. The furniture was still there. The couch we picked together. The shelves I'd built. But it all felt like someone else's story now. I'd spent so long fighting, proving I wasn't the nobody Camila thought I was, and now that it was over, I didn't know what came next. That night, I packed a small bag. Just some clothes, papers, a toothbrush. Locked the door behind me. The house could wait. I needed air, space, something new. I drove north. No destination. Just the hum of the road and the weight lifting off my chest with every mile. I landed in Pinehaven, a quiet little coastal town. Salty air, gray waves, a whole different world. The first morning, I woke up in a rented cabin. Ocean breeze drifting through a cracked window. No emails. No court files. Just the waves crashing outside. I walked down to the beach. Shoes sinking into cold sand. Wind tugging at my jacket. And for the first time in years, I didn't have to be anywhere. Didn't have to fix anything. I sat on a driftwood log and let my mind wander. Camila's face flickered across it, her courtroom smirk, her final panic. But it didn't hurt anymore. She'd lost everything. Business, money, freedom. I walked away with more than she ever meant to give me. But it wasn't about revenge. It was about me. About finally stepping out of her shadow. The days in Pinehaven were slow and quiet. I grabbed coffee from a little shop in town. The barista nodded like I'd always been there. I'd walk the shoreline, picking up shells or just watching the horizon. The settlement money hit midweek. Enough to start fresh. Not enough to change the world. I didn't touch it yet. Didn't need to. The house back home was mine. Whether I sold it or kept it didn't matter right now. This little town, this quiet, was enough. At night, I sat on the porch with a beer. The stars overhead. My phone was off. Had been since I arrived. I didn't miss it. Zaire had texted before I left. You good? I'd replied, yeah, and I meant it. Delilah had called too. You took her down, she said. I smiled, tired but real. We did, I told her. Because it wasn't just me. Zaire, no, even Kay. They all played a part. But now they were back there. And I was here. Alone, but not lonely. I tipped the bottle back and thought about the last 15 years. I'd been her shadow. Quiet, steady, invisible. Pouring myself into her dreams until mine disappeared. Now those dreams were evidence in a courtroom. And I was still standing. The next day, I wandered into town. Bought a cheap fishing rod on impulse. Figured I'd try something new. Back at the beach, I cast the line out. The waves swallowed it. Nothing bit. I didn't care. It wasn't about the fish. It was about doing something. Being someone. Figuring out who I was without her. The sun dipped low, turning the water gold. I reeled the line in, my hands steady. No revenge in my head. No gloating. That was over. This was mine now. My time. My life. By the end of the week, I knew I'd stay in Pinehaven a little longer. The cabin was cheap. The air was clean. And for the first time in forever, the noise in my head was gone. I wasn't celebrating. Wasn't mourning. I was just living. One day at a time. I used to be her husband. Her support. Her shadow. Now it was just me. And for the first time in years, that was enough. The ocean rolled on, steady and endless. And I stood there, feeling like a man who hadn't walked away from her, but toward himself.
Thanks for listening. Share your opinion in comment section and also do like and subscribe to the channel.